Well, happy Sunday to you. Glad you're with us for ABC 24 this week. I'm Richard Ransom, reporter Broders, stepping in for Otis today. Let's get right to our topics for this Sunday. Memphis Boomtown, the Greater Memphis Chamber out with a report showing Memphis surpassing the national average when it comes to job growth for only the second time this decade. Are things as rosy as the Chamber would have us believe? Remembering young Dolph, since the Memphis rapper's murder last November, he's become an iconic figure not only in the hip-hop culture, but certainly in the Castalia Heights neighborhood he called home. But there's growing controversy on how he should be memorialized. And speaking of controversy, the Election Commission certainly finds itself at the center of it lately, from voting machines to precinct locations. This as the former Shelby County Sheriff and Mayor Mark Luttrell is brought in as an election commissioner. We will get to all that in a moment, but first of all, I want to introduce our panel for today. In addition to Brad, we have Susan Adler-Thorpe, a political consultant and with Thorpe Communications, and Tanya Weathersby is joining us. She is a columnist with the Commercial Appeal. So thanks, ladies, for being here, and Brad, you too. Let's start by talking about the Memphis economy and this big report that was released with a lot of fanfare from the Greater Memphis Chamber. And I guess initially when you read the numbers, they don't lie. The unemployment rate at the beginning of 2021 was 7%. Now it's down to 4.1%. It hasn't been that low in a long time. 18,500 new jobs. And we've seen the most growth in supply chain logistics, so 13% growth there, and 7% in advanced manufacturing. And the Chamber really was careful to point out those two particular categories because they see that as the area where we have the strongest potential for growth, especially as you look to the Ford motor plant, which is going to start being built here this year.
Yeah, for sure, Richard. And we talked a couple of weeks before that, the Chamber had a special kind of Zoom call about logistics in general, and they were talking about how they really believe that logistics can really be a real, driver for the economy in the region, thinking about things like IT and other kind of analyst jobs with the Ford plant coming, with FedEx always obviously in place, and there's really a lot of potential there for more of those jobs to come. This is a good sign, though. It shows you how hopefully we're through the pandemic, obviously like 2 years ago, and just kind of moving through the 2 years of a lot of economic decline. Looks like we're getting a lot of those jobs back. Some projects have stalled. The Lowe's Hotel, the project formerly known as Union Row, still hasn't really broken ground. So there's still some areas of improvement, but the Chambers, after a real challenging 2020 and 2021, Richard, it looks like things are moving back to where they were before the pandemic.
Something to hang their hat on anyway. But, I would argue, Susan, it's the Chamber's job to paint the most rosy picture possible, no matter what city you're in. There's nothing new about that. That's why we call it Chamber of Commerce weather when we have a nice day. So talk about what your reaction is to the report and the way the Chamber presented it this week.
Well, I think as a community, we have a lot of things to be proud of, and they offer us a lot of hope, and we have a lot of things to be hopeful about, especially business-wise. But this report also compared us on the national average, that we're doing better on the national average. And I think comparing us on a national average is kind of a false comparison, because a lot of podunk towns, in all due respect, are included in that national average. I think what they should have done is, the real relevant question is, or the relevant statistic is, how are we doing against our peer cities of our size? Compared to our peer cities, for the last 10 years, we've lagged in job growth and income growth, and if you couple that with population growth, we've got some real obstacles ahead of us. I mean, I love the rosy picture, but what it seems to me is that the Chamber, it feels like they came out with this report right around the time that First Horizon announced that it was being acquired by a Toronto bank, which means we have now lost our biggest, most favored homegrown bank headquartered here in Memphis. And, what I think the Chamber really is doing is kind of cherry picking the data to tell us some good news.
Wow.
Tanya, what do you think about that? Do you agree or have
Well, I agree with Susan, and to pivot off what Susan said, I took a look at the entire report, and the thing that stood out to me was even though you see job growth in logistics and manufacturing, where we're really suffering is in hospitality, services, things like that. And I think that's something, and in healthcare, and I think that's something that's going to really hurt Memphis if it's not addressed in the future, simply because a lot of the branding that Memphis brings to the table when they're trying to bring industries and things like Ford into the area and things like that, is that Memphis, is a place with the blues. We have all these cultural attractions and things like this in the hotels. You can't get enough people to staff the hotels and the restaurants. That's not going to help Memphis at all either. Interestingly enough, there was a report in The Economist about how so many people are leaving hospitality jobs, they're leaving restaurant jobs, they're leaving all these jobs because of all the things that happened to them during the pandemic. You had people who were not courteous, folks who were threatening their lives. And a lot of people, keep in mind, are still fearful about variants, Omicron, things like that. So, even though it's kind of buried down in the report about the struggles they're having in hospitality, at the same time, I think that's something they should we should keep tabs on, because that could really, people come to Memphis and they go to one of the clubs or BB King's or wherever like that, and they can't get decent service because you have people who aren't working. That's going to hurt the city too. So, we can crow about all these other things, but that's an underlying factor too. Also, still the pay is not keeping up in those areas. It's not keeping up. Still got to address that.
Isn't that a challenge, just to play devil's advocate with you, isn't that a challenge that every city is facing right now when it comes to hospitality workers, how they struggle, they don't pay what they probably deserve?
Yeah, it's a struggle that every city is facing, but Memphis is different in that part of what it sells to the public is tourism. It's tourism, Elvis, BB King, the blues, those things like that. Memphis can be especially hurt by that because that's one of our main industries. It's one of our main things that people come to Memphis for. One of the reasons why, I still believe this, that we were able to get the Ford thing over in Haywood County is because Haywood County doesn't have the same branding as Memphis. Memphis is a brand. It's a brand because of Elvis and all those things. So yeah, I could see that it happens everywhere else, but Memphis should pay close attention because it happens here. It could do some real damage.
Susan, I'll let you have the final word on this.
Well, look, the chamber is run by some very good people, and I have a lot of respect for them. They have a difficult job, and their job is truly to make us feel good. But I think one of the most important things they could do in the immediate future, we can't solve all these problems overnight, but one thing they can do is get on a plane and fly to Toronto to the bank that has acquired our most important headquartered bank that provides numerous jobs in this community and is a great civic and corporate citizen. Fly up there and sell them on Memphis, tell them how great we are, and hopefully we can keep some of these jobs. And also, let's not forget, First Horizon owns that very big bank building downtown. What will that Toronto bank do with that building? There are a lot of unanswered questions. We know what happened when we lost Holiday Inns. Let's hope that doesn't happen to us by losing First Horizon.
Well, in fact, the South Main building that's been an empty eyesore now for years and years was originally the Union Planters headquarters, was it not, years ago?
Yeah.
Before we lost that bank?
It was, so.
Yeah.
Yep. So.
Well, that's what happens when you lose a headquarters of a major bank. Things fall into disrepair, and we lose jobs. And these are important jobs. These are high-paying jobs.
Not to mention some nervous nonprofits, Brad,
for sure.
Because a lot of nonprofits depend on First Horizon.
And but Susan's point, there is a nonstop to Toronto every day on Air Canada, so they can get up there on a nonstop flight. Don't even have to connect to Detroit. But and spot on with Tanya with the tourism jobs. I think that's going to be really key as we want to get back into normalcy with tourism. You got to have those jobs. So Tanya's spot on about that. All
right, when we come back, we're going to talk about young Dolph. There's a lot of controversy about how to memorialize him. Should we memorialize him? That's coming up right after the break.